What's good, everyone? Today we're here for my round 5 AFL tips and predictions. It's the round of Gather Round, and oh my goodness, I am so excited for Gather Round. It's going to be such a good week. Lots of content planned. You might be wondering, weren't you just in Adelaide only like a day ago? What are you doing back here in Melbourne? Funnily enough, it worked out cheaper for me heading from Adelaide back to Melbourne than from Melbourne back to Adelaide. Now, before we get into going through last round, I just want to quickly say, if there's anyone watching this that might have tickets to any of the Gather Round games, in particularly North Melbourne v Gold Coast at the Barossa Park, and especially St Kilda v GWS. Now, obviously, being a big Saints fan heading to Gather Round, I certainly want to be there for the game. Now, when Ticketek first released the tickets for Gather Round, it was such a pain acquiring tickets, and because of that, I got left screwed over. So, yeah, just anyone, if they've got any leads to those tickets, just contact me up here, Instagram, email. I'd appreciate it so much in whatever way, shape, or form, so I can make the best possible content for you guys ahead of Gather Round. But with that all being said, hopefully you guys can help out if there are any leeways. Let's get through the tips for round 4. Now, I'm actually quite disappointing that I'm at bottom 27% because I forgot to tip the first game once again. Now, people are thinking now, this has got to become a joke, right? Is this like a late April Fool's joke? How do you consistently do this when you're making tips videos every week? When I do the tips, I believe that I've submitted them after going through them, but I forget to actually click on the button. And as a result, I got screwed over the Collingwood v Carlton game. So realistically, it should have been a 7. Would have been a pretty solid round for me, but unfortunately, we ranked quite poorly. I tipped Geelong to beat Melbourne, like everyone would have. You would have assumed. Gold Coast to beat Adelaide. That was a great game. Brisbane to beat Richmond. And this one was the one that sucked me in. North Melbourne with a decent, last few games. I thought maybe they could win against the Swans at Marvel. The Giants beat West Coast very easily. Put Adelaide, St Kilda. What a win from the Saints. Great win. And then the Dockers beating the Dogs on the Sunday night game. So we got 1,419 members currently in the competition. The best scorer, well, let's actually go through the total. No, we'll go through best scorer. So best scorer for round 4 was J Tomo. Makes his own content. He got a perfect score using his joker, so he gets a 17 from 12. Great round for J Tomo. Teddy Prid, Cart King, Sander, and Archie Speed also with a solid joker score. The best scores for the non-joker users were Harlan is a True Blood and Selks, both tipping a perfect round and a perfect margin. I'm going to quickly scroll through the rest of the perfects. We had a few actually do a pretty good score, like a Will Arnott, Octa AFL, Zay Burnell. He tipped against Port. I mean, to be fair, he did say it in the vlog.
I did tip the Saints.
Now, total score, let's take a look to see who's leading ahead of Gather Round. And we've got a non-name and ESPN Footy Tips user with 2 very good joker rounds, now heading into first with 41 and a margin of 101. Zyla is the GOAT in second place. Lynchy, MGP Dockers, and Jack Patterson. As you can see, everyone in the top 5 has already used their joker. I'm currently sitting 830th for the round, but if we're looking at overall, I think I'm doing even worse. I'm sitting 1,061st, so definitely forgetting to tip 2 games certainly cost me. Now, when it comes to fantasy, we still have Jacob R leading the overall ranking. Total score now of 79-71. Kavya A, Lucas R, Macklin B, and Mason R ran at the top 5. I'm currently with a score of 169 with my members fantasy preview and review coming out soon. Let's go through the big calls and punishments for round 4. I actually ended up completing a previously mentioned punishment, which was to swap teams' Guernseys after every score. So I did that for the North v Sydney game. I'll show you a couple of snippets, but the full video will be out on More Cardman in the next day or 2.
Yeah!
Let's go North, only 71 down, come on! Woo! Look at the big calls requiring the 2 in the 8 games. The first game that I got correct was in Melbourne v Geelong. I said that the Ds would fail to score 8 or more goals, and the Ds I think only scored the 6 in a very dirty night for them. And only needed the 1 more big call correct in the Giants v West Coast game. I correctly predicted that Lockie Whitfield would record 35 or more disposals, and that was enough for getting me over the line once again. So I've actually been doing okay the last couple of weeks, avoiding some of the punishments. AFL legend once again, the most liked comment in a week where I don't have to do his punishment, and he said go to Richmond Hawthorn round 8. Every Hawthorn goal, you need to run from a front row seat to any top seats on level 3. Thank God I don't have to do that. Now, also as well, the voting is open for round 4. So just drop your 3-2-1 vote for who you thought the best player was for each game. And obviously at the end of the season, we'll go through them all in a little bit of a Brownlow format on our live stream. It should be really good fun. So vote down below. Links are in the description. And one more thing as well. I said last week that we're trying to see if we can maybe get to 45,000 subscribers by the start of Gather Round. We're less than 300 to go. This is a chance for you guys to help out doing something massive. We're going to give away a box of AFL Team Coach if we can hit 45,000 subscribers by the first bounce Adelaide Geelong Gather Round. So do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and let's get right into my Gather Round tips for round 5. Well, let's kick off Gather Round with a big game. Adelaide take on Geelong at the Adelaide Oval on the Thursday night. Now, before we head into this game's preview, I just want to quickly point out to those that probably haven't had a chance to quite yet have a look at the weather. Gather Round this year is going to be an absolute scorcher. It's going to be an average, I think, of 30 degrees on every single day. And even for a Thursday night game, I think it might be 28 degrees. Obviously, I think that's going to come into a factor for a lot of the games in the round. It might be even the hottest round on record, potentially on average game. Well, Adelaide Geelong, once again, it's Adelaide opening the account for Gather Round on a Thursday, 3 years in a row. And we haven't really gotten a great matchup in either of them. The first one, I think Adelaide smashed the Blues, and then it was like a really poor game against Melbourne. I think this is going to be probably the best of lot, you would think. I think Adelaide are currently in some really good form, and I think it's going to be hard for Geelong to handle the likes of their 3 key forwards who are just contributing so well right now. Obviously, Riley Thilthorpe being the best of the bunch, but you got Walker aging like a fine wine, and Darcy Fogarty. They're going to probably score over 100 points once again at the AO, and are the Cats going to be able to match it in their forward end? Very unlucky to not win that game. Even the AFL came out and said that should have been a free kick to Rankin, so the roles could be reversed. They could be 4-0. They're going to head into this one in front of majority Adelaide crowd, you would think, and I think they should be the strongest side. Obviously, the Cats, though, for a quality outfit, and they can win anywhere, especially at the Adelaide Oval. We saw that last year. I think they're capable. They beat the Crows there last year. They had a possibly too easy of a game against Melbourne. Melbourne were just giving the footy at every cost possible, and it was a very much of a snooze fest contest, so much more of a challenge for the Cats here. They do have an extra day break, so that could play into their terms a little bit. But I think once again with Adelaide, I think they're going to want to come out hard and come out fast. And Gather Round liked it against the Blues 2 years ago, I think it was. They'll kick the first few goals of the game, and it's going to be a hard one for the Cats to catch up. But hopefully this is a good game. Hopefully it's an underrated matchup. But I just think, again, not going to get the closest game Thursday night. I'm going to the Crows to win this game by 30. I'm really liking them. And I reckon my big call is that they're going to kick the first 3 goals of the game. Next game on a Friday night, we've got Collingwood Sydney at the Adelaide Oval. Now, I'm not a fan of the non-Norwood game. There should be a Norwood game before this one. It would have made sense. The last 2 Gather Round fixtures had this. This is a hard one to tip. We've seen historically the last couple of years just some poor Friday night games as well as the Thursdays. I think this is a chance of really being a quality game of footy. In fact, let me know down below, would you guys want to see a match day vlog for this game as well? I might vlog the first 2 nights of Gather Round because I might be pumped up and about for it. With Collingwood right now, they're in some really good form, currently with 3 in a row, and they fielded their most experienced side. In fact, the most experienced side in AFL history on the weekend. And that was enough to get the job done. Their experience shined through. For like example, I thought Sidebottom had a really good game. Obviously, Pendlebury was class. And Lachie Schultz, he was a BOG performance on the ground as well. Unfortunately, he'll be missing heading into this week. So that's going to be a bit of a blow given his really strong start to the season. But yeah, Carlton, they were really poor after halftime. Collingwood took control after halftime. Just way too strong. They probably should have won by more. They had so much more control of the territory. Were just moving the ball a lot more freely and had a few wasted chances. Yeah, the Pies are looking pretty good so far heading into this season. Swans as well, though. I think they're heading back to their best form. Obviously, the last 2 weeks, they beat Freo. That game against North Melbourne, I wasn't expecting them to dish up that quality of a performance. I know North Melbourne were really poor. I didn't give them enough respect, clearly, heading into that game against North Melbourne. They absolutely killed the Roos from the first bounce, honestly, but especially after half-time, that's where the skill difference and the level of quality really shone through, and they were just way more clinical with the footy. Hayward had a great game kicking 4. Riley Bice, what a pickup he's been. Joel Amati also kicked 4 goals up forward, so potentially could provide a headache if they bring back McDonald, potentially. He obviously played in the VFL last week. I think he kicked a few goals. They do play the Adelaide Oval quite well as well, but also the Pies. So I think due to the fact both sides play this ground well, I don't think any of these sides have lost yet for a Gather Round game. But I reckon with the fact that now Houston's going to be out with a suspension 2 weeks, no Lachie Schultz. He was so important for them last week against Carlton, and DeGoey now won't be playing, I'm pretty sure. That's just making me skew my tip towards the Swans. I'm swaying my tip now. I think Sydney, honestly, I think they're going to get the win. And I think they're going to go 3 in a row. I think they're going to get, some are saying an upset, but if you're really using your brain and you look at those outs in Sydney's form, I don't think it's an upset. So I'm going Sydney to win this game in a great one. 12 points, 9 more lead changes is my big call. Right, let's head to Saturday. And I do have the time slots for Adelaide local time down below because it's Gather Round. You got to give them a bit of support. We've got North Melbourne v Gold Coast, 12:05 p.m. at Barossa Park. The first ever game played at the Barossa. So yeah, as I mentioned earlier in the video as well, if you guys just have any leads, ways to tickets, I know it's a North v Gold Coast game. Why should I care so much? But I do want to go to this. I'm not sure if I've locked in a ticket yet for this game. So preferably 2. Just let me down below if anyone knows where to get them or knows who's selling them or anything like that. If you got a spare, if you aren't going, all that will be handy. Let's preview the game, though, and look, it looked to be a decent game a couple of weeks ago, but probably now not the most enthralling matchup, especially after last week's non-contest that North provided. I was really disappointed with how North, performed on the weekend, especially given my expectations. It was at Marvel. We thought, all right, they were able to beat a decent side. They competed well against Adelaide. Against Sydney, I think they're going to do the same thing, and it was just really poor. And I thought they took 2 steps backwards, to be honest. They lowered their colours massively. None of their midfielders were damaging. All of their players were getting the footy in the wrong spots, I felt, and they were playing a little bit too much for themselves. Really poor, and I think against a mature Suns midfield who have started red hot in 2025, I think they could take full advantage, and I'm really bullish on Gold Coast this year. I know people might think that Gold Coast didn't deserve the win, but when you looked at the stats, the Suns were probably the stronger side for longer. They just allowed the Crows a little bit back into the game. I know it's at Barossa Park, so who knows? I think as well this game might be like 31 degrees, 32 degrees, 12 o'clock. Like, it's just, they're not great conditions, but I think they might even suit Gold Coast because they're more used to the heat. The Suns are going to win this game, but I'm only going to tip my 15. I think North maybe get a few junk time goals late, but I'm going my big call that Ben King against the pretty lowly rated North Melbourne defense will kick 5 or more goals. Next up, in the 12:50 p.m. time slot, we've got Carlton v West Coast. Now, a lot of people have been asking me in the lead up to Gather Round whether or not I'll be trying to go to every game again, and that's just not going to be able to happen, and this is most likely going to be one of those games where I won't be able to go to. I mean, it could be an okay game. I think it's going to just be a really shit one, to be honest. It's a game that suddenly has become a fixture for interest, but for all the wrong reasons. You've got 2 sides that, after round 4, haven't won a game yet. I'm trying to remember the last time. I don't think it's ever happened where we've had the battle of the winless heading into a Gather Round game. I just cannot really see this game being great. I know they're both 0-4, but the gap between both sides is still miles away from the other. Like, Carlton, they're so much better than West Coast, even with how badly Carlton have started the season. And it's just the same old sorry for Carlton. I don't know if they're match fit enough, and they haven't got enough. Obviously, we know they don't have enough depth, but they cannot finish games off again, leading at halftime against Collingwood, and just an absolutely deplorable third quarter, which really just set them away from the Pies, and it was just really poor. They kicked a few chunk ones late, but they just didn't provide enough. Once again, they scored under 50 points. Luckily, they are playing witches' hats. And the Eagles, that's what they were. They were witches' hats against the Giants. I saw some of that game. Jesse Hogan kicked 9 goals against, I think it was one of the newbies for West Coast. So you give them a little bit of lenience, but still, they were just really poor, West Coast, with all their foot skills. A lot of their mature age players just weren't good enough. Oscar Allen. I just don't think this is a danger, especially if McGovern's still out for the Eagles, which I think he might be. They might be bringing in Mackay. I just cannot see Carlton losing this. I just think they're so much stronger of a lineup. They'll get a win here against a really poor West Coast side. They normally win big against the Eagles as well. If somehow the Blues lose this game, sack Voss, and it'd probably be the lowest point in Carlton's history since, I'd say, the Carlton salary cap saga. It would be that bad. So Carlton will win this game big, I reckon. It's not going to be a great game. I'm going Carlton by 48 points. My big call, the Blues are going to score 18 or more goals. Next game we have at Norwood Oval, 4:15 p.m. It is Western Bulldogs take on Brisbane. Now, straight off the bat, I don't like this fixture at all. The game will be all right, but I just don't know why it was played at Norwood. I just think you need to swap around this game with the Saturday night game. Also, this game should be at the Adelaide Oval regardless. Like, I just don't like this fixture at all, to be honest. Especially Brisbane being the reigning premiers and even the Bulldogs being a reigning finalist side. Why would you have it at Norwood? Anyways, I think this could be an underrated matchup, though, to be honest. I mean, the Lions, they're 4-0. They're undefeated without playing their best footy. I just don't think they need to. They're once again just banking in these wins. They put the foot off the pedal massively in the last quarter, which is a bit of a disappointment. You know, in the first 3 quarters, they did enough. They led by 54. I thought both Ashcrofts played well. The Doggies, again, they've certainly surpassed my expectations to start off the season. I thought they were all right against the Dockers, barring that period in the second quarter when I watched back the highlights. I think that was like 6 goals in a row that they conceded. So that's the issue. Sam Darcy right now, you could make the argument that he's right now the best player in the game. He was just, once again, in control. He kicked 5. He had 10 plus marks, 20 plus disposals. Honestly, without Darcy, they wouldn't be in as many games this season. Let me just tell you that. So I feel like if there's any chance the Dogs do win this game, you're going to expect Darcy to have a big one. And if the Lions can nullify the impact of Darcy, I think they can probably win the game decently well. It's going to be a good contest, though, but I just think the Lions have more quality, more stars. They probably win that midfield battle, and they're more experienced at Norwood. I'm saying the Lions in a really good game of footy. I'm actually going to go the Lions by 4. A big call, though, that the total combined points is under 150. And the Saturday night Adelaide Oval Hill game, where all the content creators will be. I wonder how fucked I'll be in terms of drinking. Hopefully not as much as last year. It is Melbourne take on Essendon, and can I just say this? I never thought this game should have been the matchup on the Saturday night. When I saw the fixture, I'm like, these two sides I don't rate heading into the season, and I'm I'm pretty accurate on that. I don't think they're two great sides at the moment. It's just two average sides on the sort of the prime time gather-round game. I do think, though, because of the fact that they're both kind of average, we might get a close game. Melbourne still looking for their first win, and I don't know where that win's going to come from. It could well and truly be this game. They could finally get a kick in, but I don't know if it's going to be the case. I mean, their game plan just simply doesn't stack up. They've got no scoring avenue. I thought once again, Bailey Fritsch, who has had a really he's had a poor last year and a bit, once again, just showing nothing, providing them with nothing. Pickett showed a little bit of firepower at some stages in the game, but for the most part, the D's they're just such a hard side to watch. They're just finding it so difficult to get anything going up forward when they move the footy. And so many times they're just kicking it straight to a Geelong player, especially like Tom Stewart had a field day. Yeah, look, Bombers fans, it's been a tough start to the season, but they got a win before the bye against the Power, which gives them some belief that maybe they could still compete, potentially even for finals if they get stuff going. I don't think that's going to be the case, but I just think they've got more quality as well in the midfield. I think they can score a little bit more through that midfield and up forward. And also I'm excited to see Sardal Hawley live after the game he played against the Power. So surely he gets a full game going and isn't the sub. And I just think overall the Bombers should be the stronger side. I could see Melbourne winning this. Hopefully it's a good matchup. Hopefully it's higher scoring than what Melbourne games have been over the last few weeks. But I think Essendon win this game, and I'm going to go 20 points with my big call that the Bombers will lead for 80% or more of the game. Next up, we do have on the Sunday, the early game at the Barossa Park. Another hot one. I think it's going to be Richmond take on Freo. This game is one that I'll certainly probably be missing, considering it's just such a hard one to get from here to Norwood, especially with a 1 hour car trip. And again, can I see this one being a great game of footy? Not really. I think Freo are starting to find their form going forward, and I think it's just not going to be much of a contest. I think Freo just have the stronger lineup in general. And finally, last week with the Dockers, I was actually convinced with their way they played. Really strong second quarter that kind of broke the game open. Caleb Throng, once again, one really good game. Murphy Reid should get the rising star nom. And they also have Sean Darcy back as well, which should change things up for them, hopefully for the better. Yeah, I can't really see Richmond coming too close to Freo, but you never know. I think they had a decent game last week against Brisbane. They showed certainly a lot of fight in that second half, especially that last quarter. And I think maybe because it's at the Barossa Park, the margin might not be too big. I don't know. But what I will know, and what I'm pretty confident with, is that the Dockers win. So I'll say the Dockers by 39 points with my big call that Shai Bolton against his former side kicks 3 or more goals. Next up, we have at Norwood Oval, 2:50 p.m. local time, St Kilda taking on GWS. And I am absolutely pumped for this game. I got a lot of hope now after the last few weeks as a St Kilda fan. I know as of right now recording this, I haven't got a ticket to get in, but I'd hope that changes. I'm pretty confident that I can make my way through the gates. Yeah, this is going to be a really good game of footy. Now, look, we've seen Sunday twilight Norwood games before the last couple years, and we've seen some close games in both of them. I think this could be another one of those close games. I think it's going to be it's a battle against the two undefeated sides at Norwood, and I'm optimistic. I think this is a game you don't want to be missing out. Now, obviously, GWS, the stronger side, I think more people are certainly going to be backing them in. The tipsters are going 91, the Giants, which I think is a little bit too more in their favour. Last week, they completely dominated against the Eagles. It was just way too easy. They move the ball so freely when they want to, and it's actually quite scary. Darcy Jones was massive. Obviously, Jesse Hogan kicked 9, but you're not going to expect that every week. Clearly, they had a weaker defense, the Eagles. I think the Saints should certainly lock him up a little bit more than stop him from kicking 9 goals. Tom Green was big. He had like 37. Whitfield with 35. Toby Green had a good game as well. Yeah, they're playing really convincing footy, but that was once again against the Eagles. And the Saints as well, they're in some tremendous form for their sakes after their poor start to the season. They beat the Cats when no one really backed them in against the Cats. Massive win against Richmond. And then to back things up, these are the sort of games the Saints would lose in historically, but Ross Lyon, great coaching game plan. Such a strong start. And I think we can honestly beat anyone at the moment, really. I'm that confident. I don't want to be too confident. We're keeping the lid on it at the moment, but, that monkey's now off the back there. We've beaten the Power. We've got a little bit of confidence, 6-goal first quarter. That's sort of where that win came from, and we just held on, kicked the last 2 goals, which was really important. So many of our youngsters are contributing well. Jack Higgins is like 12 goals now. I think he's like 3rd in the Coleman. Wangney Miller, he's in all-Australian form. Sinclair as well. And also the fact that the Saints are staying in Adelaide for that extra week, it helped Melbourne last week. So I think the fact that the Saints have that extended week in Adelaide, they came in early, they kind of know the conditions. I think that's going to play into their favour a little bit. And the Saints have Max King coming back possibly and Jack Steele. So yes, I know the Giants probably the stronger side, certainly on paper, but I'm going another upset call here. I'm going to take the Saints again by 5 points, and I'm going to say the Saints come back from 3/4 time and win as my big call. And finally, we have on the Sunday night, Port Adelaide take on Hawthorn at the Adelaide Oval. This was meant to be the game of all games to wrap up gather-round, and we've seen in recent gather-rounds, we've seen some really strong contests, some close games of footy. But based off what we've seen so far this season, it unfortunately might not be the case. A lot of people are writing Port Adelaide off altogether, saying they're no chance at finals, even contending, against Hawthorn, who are currently undefeated. They haven't put a foot wrong, coming off the bye, and are looking, hot for a really massive 2025. Obviously, last week, Port Adelaide, they were really disappointing. You wouldn't have expected them to get outclassed in the midfield, but they didn't, and they just couldn't stop the fast, rampaging Saints, as Scoops would like to call them. Obviously, they came hard for a lot of the game, but the Saints just did enough to hold on. The maturity is there for St Kilda and Port Adelaide. It's disappointing. Rosie hasn't done enough for them. I thought Horn Francis finally had his best. He had a really strong game, but they didn't have many others around him, lifting for the occasion. So, yeah, you could definitely see Hawthorn winning this by 40-plus points with how good they've been playing. But it's due to the fixture. I just think this is a sort of game you might still see a good one. Port Adelaide want to respond. They want to still give their fans something. I know Ken is kind of done right now, but it's the sort of the occasion I think Port Adelaide could rise to. I don't know. I think despite what everyone's saying, this could still be that blockbuster game everyone is wanting. After the last few encounters between Port and Hawthorn, the Power have had the better of Hawthorn at home. So you've got a lot of tensions there with Ken Hinkley, Jack Ginnivan, those comments. I think Ken Hinkley is going to treat this game as his grand final. I'm not going to lie. And Hawthorn now have Will Day out. So I know it's stupid. I really know it's stupid. I'm going a side 1-3 against the side of 4-0. But I think this is actually going to be an absolute blockbuster way of ending Gather Round. I think Port Adelaide, at their best, are still capable. They just haven't shown it yet. Hawthorn might come off the bye not as fresh as we think with no Will Day. So I'm going to say Port Adelaide win this game by 2 points to finish off Gather Round. If you're following along with my tips, probably don't follow my tip with this. This is sort of my biggest risk. And this is also a tip. Hopefully I can get up a point after the ones I've missed out on in the tipping comp. But yeah, I'm going Port Adelaide. And my big call, let's say Zachy Butters with 35 more disposals. Right, so those are my Gather Round tips for round 5. It's going to be a very fun week. I'm heading up on the Wednesday, going to get there like mid-afternoon, so it's going to be really fun. Going to film a lot of content. I'll actually get a Gather Round vlog out this time. So let's quickly go through the tips now. We have Adelaide, Sydney, Gold Coast, Carlton, Brisbane, Essendon, Freo, St Kilda, and Port Adelaide. Leave your tips down below. Leave your big calls down below. Subscribe to help me get to 45k by the start of Gather Round, and we'll see you very soon in my next video.